Look at our wall object here. You can see that we can change the justification. We can also access its sub-objects, so we can access the vertices, which in this case are simply the points here that we use to create our wall. We're not thinking about any of the points actually creating any of this geometry. It's actually more of just a profile. So you could kind of move that around and see how that works. Okay. You can also access the different segments of the wall. So we could access our segments, and any of these that you select, you'll get different options down here in our rollouts. Okay, so if I select maybe this segment over here and I want to add a couple of divisions, I can go ahead and bump those up and say divide, and I'll divide that evenly. Okay, and so let's say that I want to create a vault from basically this point over to this point. So we need some geometry over here. So we'll take this segment first, go ahead and create one division, divide that. And now what we can do is grab this vertex right down here, and we can move this back and forth. And so what we want to do is go into the top view and actually match this up with basically this line right over here. Okay, so we want to go ahead and pull this down. Okay, and so we want to come down right about there. Okay, but now we need to actually convert this into some sort of an editable state, because what we want to do is grab these vertices and kind of pull these up and create an angle in here. So to do this, we need to convert this into an editable poly, but I'd like to keep a copy of these parametric walls in case we need to come in and make any changes with the windows or doors or anything like that, just so that we have a spare copy. And I'll keep that copy in a new layer. So with this wall selected, I'm going to right click on the main toolbar, bring up layers. Okay, and right now we just have a single layer, default layer. So what I'm going to do is with this selected, go ahead and choose to create a new layer. And we can just call this parametric walls, something like that. Say OK. I want to move this selection to the new layer. So now that's located on this layer. And now we'll go up and clone, create a copy of these walls. In this copy, we're going to actually go to our old layer and add this to the old layer. So now, if I go ahead and choose parametric walls, and what I want to do is hit the little eye, and that'll actually create the turn off the visibility for that. And so what I'm left with is the copy that we just created. Okay, we always have the ability to go back and work with our parametric walls at a later date because they're saved in that invisible layer. So now we want to create this as an editable poly. So we'll right click on this and convert to editable poly. And you can see in some of these instances there's been some edges that have been connected up here on some of these holes that we have created. So what this does for us is it allows us to access these vertices like this, and we can get this down into a state where we're a little bit more raw. Now keep in mind, if you go ahead and move the windows or doors around at this point, nothing's going to happen. Those holes are baked into that geometry, so they're not going to be moving around like they did with our parametric walls. But we still have those available if we need them. So at this point, we want to create a vault basically from this line over to this side. So let's go ahead and go to our left-hand view. All right, let's grab these vertices, and that's basically the highest point here. Okay, and so each grid line is about 6 inches. So let's go up maybe about an extra 4 feet or so. So we've got 1, 2, 3, and 4. And you could go up a little bit higher if you wanted to. I just want to create a little bit more space in there. Now I want to go ahead and grab these points and just continue along and create a nice straight line there. So bring that one up there, grab those points and bring that angle up there, and then we'll grab this point and bring it up there. So you shouldn't have any vertices down in here at all. They should all be following along with that straight line that we've created. Okay, and you can grab this if you want to continue that line up. Okay, and move that up like that. So what that gives us is kind of a vault in the ceiling that starts from this point right here, and then it continues up here. And then we've got a regular 8-foot ceiling over the kind of the living area, and then we'll have kind of a sitting area back here and some rugs and the steps going back here. So starting to get this worked out now that we've got the sort of the structure built out. And then now a plane. So I'll go to create and go back to standard primitives and choose plane. And now I'll just drag this out in the top view so that it encompasses the entire room. Okay, and you can modify that in the modify panel if you want to change the number of segments or do anything like that. but I'm going to go ahead and leave it as is. And you can see that this is at the origin so that it is it's placed correctly. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and just duplicate this by holding down Shift and just dragging this up in the Z, and just pull this up above the room somewhere. Make this a copy. Say OK to that.
Yeah.
And I'll just move this out of the way. Now this, I'm going to go ahead and name this the floor. Okay, and let's go ahead and add this to a new layer. So I'm going to go ahead and right click on the main toolbar, go ahead and bring up layers, and let's go ahead and create a new layer, and we'll call this floor layer. And I'm going to move the selection to the new layer. So this, I've got the floor selected, so it's going to go ahead and move it to that layer. Say OK to that. And now what I want to do is make this so that I don't accidentally select this floor. I want it to be there, but I don't necessarily want to have to worry about selecting it when I was selecting some of the other things I'm working on. So I'm going to go ahead and choose to freeze this layer. So right here you can see we have options here for the visibility of the layer. And here we can also either be able to select it or we can freeze it. You can see it turns gray when I turn that, when I freeze that. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and leave that as such. Go ahead and close the layers. Now I can't accidentally select the floor, but it is there. Now for the ceiling, I want to go ahead and modify this so that it matches up with our vault here. So I want to go ahead and bring this down to the ceiling there. Okay, and I'll go ahead and bring it down to the level, the 8 feet level of the non-vaulted portion of the ceiling. And let me go ahead and make sure I grab this back. There we go. And I'll just move this down to be level with that portion right there. And now we want to make sure that we add that vault in. So we need to have the resolution in the right spot, basically. So if we go to the top view, we can see this line right here is where that vault's going to occur. So I'm going to go ahead and take one of these, and to do that I need to convert this to an editable state. So I'm going to go ahead and decrease the number of segments to, just decrease it to 2 there. And I can leave this at 4 going this way if I want to. I'll go ahead and convert this to an editable poly so that we can access the sub-objects here. And then I can either select the edges or the vertices along this line here. And I'll go ahead and just move those into position right along there. Okay, so this is at the point where that vault is going to occur. Now I'll select these vertices and come in from the side, and we'll go ahead and just move those up. And it can just extend a little bit beyond. You don't have to make it match up exactly with this line here. As long as it extends beyond, that's totally fine. And that will give you something like this. Okay, so if you look inside, we've got our nice vaulted ceiling there. Now for convenience sake, if we're going to be modeling a lot of stuff in this room, it's going to be kind of a pain to have to go inside here and we're really confined trying to build something in here. So what I'd like to do is be able to turn this ceiling off and on, depending on whether I want it to be want to access things inside here. So I'm going to go ahead and again add this to a new layer. So go to layers, create new layer, and let's call this ceiling. I'll call it ceiling layer. Move selection to new layer, say OK to that. Alright, and now what I can do is just turn the visibility of the ceiling layer off. Okay, so we've got the ceiling in there, but we don't necessarily want it to be visible while we're working. Okay, unless we're doing something that's attached to the ceiling, like the lights or things like that. So I'm going to go ahead and leave that off. So now I've got the floor layer, which I've got frozen but visible, and I've got the ceiling layer, which is not frozen but it's invisible right now, and we can turn that off and on as we need it. But right now we're going to be building kind of things to fill up this room, so we don't necessarily want the ceiling to be in our way. But we've got all organized here with our layers. Okay, so now that we've got our floor and ceiling, the next thing that we want to do is let's add a little bit of trim around the parts of the ceiling and also around the floor. And we can do that very simply using the geometry that we already have. So we'll go ahead and look at how we can do that in the next lesson.